Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us. And this is FCT Brief. We're reaching you live from our Abuja studio.
It's now 2 years after President Bola Tinubu assumed office as the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. In the next 30 minutes or more, we will be reviewing his administration's journey so far, its promises, progress, and the challenges that remain. President Bola Tinubu was sworn in as Nigeria's 16th president, pledging to renew hope and bring about a new era of economic revival and national unity. But 2 years on, Nigerians are asking, has the promise been fulfilled? On the economic front, one of the most immediate actions of the Tinubu administration was the removal of fuel subsidy, as unpopular but long-demanded reform. The move sent shockwaves through the economy, triggering inflation and a sharp rise in transport and food prices. The government defended the decision, saying it was necessary to stop the bleeding of the national finances. But critics argue it was implemented without adequate social safety nets.
In foreign policy, President Tinubu has taken an assertive role, particularly within ECOWAS. His administration led the regional response to the Niger coup, showing a willingness to assert Nigeria's leadership in West Africa. At the United Nations and other forums, President Tinubu has consistently advocated for fairer global economic structures and climate finance for Africa. Security remains a mixed bag. While there have been gains against insurgents in the northeast, violent banditry and kidnappings in the northwest and central Nigeria persists. The government says it has launched several joint task force operations and continues to invest in military hardware. On governance and institutional reforms, President Tinubu introduced the Student Loan Act and digital tax reforms aimed at broadening Nigeria's revenue base. However, critics continue to raise concerns over transparency, rising debt, and what some call a slow pace in delivering on key electoral promises. As President Tinubu crosses the halfway mark of his first term and with elections still 2 years away, Nigerians now watch closely, hoping for tangible relief, visible progress, and a more inclusive approach to national development. And joining the conversation this morning is the TVC State House correspondent, Femi Akonde, and he joins us live from Lagos via Zoom. It's good to have you on the program this morning, Femi Akonde.
Thank you. Good to be here. Good morning. Yes,
Good morning. Well, it's been 2 years since President Tinubu assumed office as the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. How well do you think he has managed the reforms and policies that have shaped the administration so far? Would you say there has been progress or it's more of confusion?
Well, there has been considerable progress for the administration of President Bola Tinubu. But the big question is how well the administration have been able to manage the reforms. Everyone agrees that these reforms are necessary. The removal of fuel subsidy, the unification of the FX, that's the exchange rate. All of that was able to bring stability. But, it's the process now that a lot of people quarrel with. When subsidy was removed and the whole FX unification, all of that happened at the same time. It was too much for Nigerians to handle. The administration had to come with some interventions, like the palliatives and other kind of interventions to help pushing the impact that the hardship caused by these government policies. All of those palliatives, during that regime of palliatives and all of the interventions, there was a lot of crisis in Nigeria, and it really it's hard on the poor and the vulnerable. Yes, the government came with good intentions, rolled out palliatives, but that process also was wrought with a lot of corruption. Not all the palliatives got to the people who are really in need of it. We also had reports of some of these palliatives diverted. Some rice, bags of rice, will be rebagged and sold in the open market at the same price. A lot of issues, happened during this period. And that's why, a lot of people were not so comfortable with the implementation of the reform. And it was also a distraction from these reforms, which the government say were necessary. And the distraction was now about the hunger in the land, the hardship, the high cost of food prices, high cost of transportation. The federal government also rolled out buses, came out with the CNG initiative, but that also was the rollout was also a bit very slow and had a lot of teething issues. Even the CNG buses, yes, we see some of them on the road now, but its impact has not really been felt in terms of pushing down the cost of transportation. So there are still a whole lot of issues, you understand. But the government has been able to make progress. We are not where the country is not where it used to be. And on the 29th of May, when President Bola Tinubu came with that declaration that subsidy is gone, when he declared a state of emergency on food security and other significant policies of his administration. Results, we're beginning to see results, but not enough that Nigerians can touch and feel.
All right, Femi, let's still dwell on these palliatives because I think there's still positive moves for palliatives because when people feel the brunt of policies, palliatives should help them. Now, moving towards the third year of the administration, how best do you think they can better manage palliatives? And also talking about some of the provision of transportation for the working class. How best do you think the government can deploy this aspect of palliatives to help Nigerians feel less the impact of some of these reforms that have been put in place by government in the third year?
Well, I think 2 years is a long time for the government to learn. They have been able to learn from their mistakes. You know, all of that happened in a hurry. They did not know that the impact of the removal of fuel subsidy will be that significant on Nigerians. They've been able to see it. Yes, they rushed into the interventions and all of that, but now they've been able to identify, critical sectors that need intervention and how to also reach them directly. So they've been able to cut out or push out, the middlemen and then go directly to these sectors, these groups that are in need of intervention to reach out directly to them. We've seen the government, give out buses to groups like the Nigerian Labour Congress, for instance, free CNG buses. We've seen them partner with the National Union of Road Transport Workers, to ensure that these buses are rolled out. They are on the road every day, moving from point A to point B, carrying people. In some cases, it's even free of charge. And in other places, it's at a low cost, carrying people, passengers, workers, commuting from one point to the other, going from their place of work back home and vice versa. So all of that is already work in progress. We expect these interventions to be strengthened in the coming days.
Oh, okay. I think we have a challenge.
I mean, Akonde, do we still have you?
Can you still hear me?
Okay, yes.
Yes, you can continue.
Okay, yes, thank you. We expect all of that to be strengthened in the coming days of these.
Okay. Okay, I was just...
there
okay.
will both...
Femi, yes. Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, and then we've also...
Femi Akonde.
Okay, I think we're having a challenge with his network there. I was just thinking that with this transportation, if government looked at some critical area, for instance, in Abuja now, you need a lot of deployment of these vehicles, for instance, to the massacre axes, because of the number of people who live outside the Abuja, the FCT, to be able to ease the movement. If you have buses in those areas, you have buses like Orozo and all those areas, you have them in Pape and all those areas, it will help in reducing the impact because of the volume. In the morning when you're coming to work, the number of people that are on the road coming to work or at the bus stops, I think it will alleviate the pain.
Well, for me, I think what President Tinubu's administration has been doing so far is taking this development agenda step by step. we have seen that the main focus for it is critical infrastructure. We've seen also the borrowing tilting towards this position. The reasons they give for borrowing more money for foreign increase in borrowing is to fund critical infrastructure, because they believe that once the critical infrastructure sector is being set up, of course that will attract revenue in some way. So taking it step by step for him, it's what he feels will improve, the lives of Nigerians. And, the area of transportation is also a good sector to consider. But I've seen a rollout of some palliatives, food, the food security that we're talking about. Some Nigerians are under critical hunger, and he feels, feeding them would also cushion the effect of this harsh policies, or the harsh impact of the policies, that Nigerians face at the moment.
I think just like you said, it's a work in progress. But as we approach the election year, it's important that, infrastructure are key. Structures that must be put in place. But side by side, as you put the infrastructure in place, some of those critical things that are touched directly, you talk of food, you talk of transportation, if government can also bring in some measures to kind of relieve, it will help complement the infrastructure that government is putting in place, so that by the time you're celebrating the third year, we can say, okay, X number of transportation have been reduced, the burden of transportation has been reduced, people now have food. It might not be like it used to be, but at least to a greater degree, the pressure on food supply is coming down.
Now, Femi, some people argue that critics are being too harsh on President Tinubu, especially considering that the poor state that he met the economy upon assuming office. Is this a fair point, or is just an excuse to mask the slow pace of things?
Well, I think it's just an excuse. It's not fair enough to say that critics are being too harsh on the president. And the president himself has said that, he applied for the job and he got the job, and he's not going to make any excuse. So I don't think it's good for other people to be making excuses for him. True, we acknowledge that he met the economy in a very bad shape. He's been able to pull the country away from the brink where it was when he came into office, and also been able to improve certain sectors in the economy. But you will not blame Nigerians for complaining. They have endured this kind of hardship for so long. They have also continued to hear excuses. We had excuses from the Buhari and Oshibajo administration, always telling us about the 16 years of the PDP administration, how bad the PDP managed Nigeria. We had that for 8 years, and we can't continue to hear this kind of excuses again. What Nigerians want to see right now is action, real work, real policies that will touch the lives of people, the lives of ordinary Nigerians. They want to see jobs created for the youth, the teeming youth population of the country. They want to have access to finances, to credit, to housing facilities. They want a whole lot. And, they have also endured for so long. They have shown understanding with the government, listened to excuses given by different governments, successive governments, not just the federal government, not even including the state and the local government. So, what they want to see now is results. They voted for this administration. The administration came with its 8-point agenda, promised to do this, and this. And it's time for this administration to prove that, yes, indeed, you voted for us based on these indices, and these are the things we're going to do for you, or these are the things we have even started doing for you. Good enough, Nigerians are beginning to see some of those campaign promises by the Tinubu administration already coming to fruition. So I don't think I won't blame critics for asking for more. It's in their place, it's in their right to ask the government to do more. It's in their right to begin to agitate for a more faster implementation of these policies, and the results begin to manifest in no time. And truly, some of these results take time to manifest. Sometimes they are quite slow. Some of them might even there are some we might not even see them manifest in the first term of this administration. But one thing Nigerians want to know is that we are on the right track. Are we on the right track? Is the government doing what it should do? Is it putting things in place where they need to be? Are they putting things in place where they need to be? And if we have that assurance from the administration, then Nigerians would be rest assured that, well, indeed, it's for future gains. Today's pains are for future gains, and then they would show that understanding with the administration. And I must say that Nigerians have also shown a great level of understanding with this administration. But for President Bola Tinubu, he has said that, well, he can't complain. He understands he came as president at the time when the country's economy was on its knees. He knows what was at stake, and he still applied for the job. And since he has taken the job, he's not going to complain. So, well, critics will do what they do best, criticize, and it's for the government to remain focused on governance.
Thank you very much, Femi. Another area I want us to take a look at is some time ago, a former U.S. president said that Africa should concentrate more on building institutions, strong institutions rather than strong persons. Now, take a look at some of the institutions that President Tinubu is putting in place, like the regional development commissions. And some persons say these commissions are strong instruments that can help drive home development to the interiors. Now, how would you assess them so far, especially in the coming year? What exactly will you expect the various commissions to begin to put in place in the northeast, in the southeast, and the south, so that the people in the interior, in the rural areas, can begin to feel the impact of government, because these are structures government is putting in place?
Well, I think the establishment of this regional commission, it's quite good. It's going to bring governance closer to the people. It's also going to help complement the effort of the state governments, to ensure that, development and federal presence, as they say, is felt in places where hitherto they were nothing like government presence. Ensure that, the farms are connected to the market, that's roads provided, and farmers are able to access the market, carry their goods to the market. Also ensure that, the whole value chain in the agricultural sector, especially for areas areas where the population are predominantly farmers. But, each regions have their peculiarity. For places like the Niger Delta or the riverine areas, for instance, where they have fishing communities, what they would need to focus on is empowering the people in this whole fishing business. Also ensure access to education for some of the people in areas where schools have not been built. Ensure that there's healthcare in areas where primary healthcare centers are far from the communities. Sometimes the primary healthcare centers are at the local government headquarters. People have to travel kilometers to be able to access healthcare. So we expect these regional commissions to bridge the gap and ensure that development is cascaded down to the grassroots. But there are still concerns, looking at NDDC, which was the pioneer regional development commission established by government several years ago. There were so many issues with the NDDC. It became like, almost the poster child of corruption in the country. So these new commissions set up will have to do differently, would have to show that, they would deviate from that culture of corruption, bad administration that the NDDC at that time was associated with. But even looking at the NDDC under the leadership of Dr. Samuel Ogbuku, it has actually done a lot. It has been able to show that, well, indeed, these regional development commissions, can also stand on its own and be able to provide that intervention for people at the rural areas based on the needs assessment done. And we have seen President Bola Tinubu at several locations even commend the current chairman of the NDDC, for doing a good job. So it's for others. We've also seen the Northeast Development Commission come on board under the administration of
All right, Femi, we'll still come back to you, but we hear that we have our Musa Rafsanjani joining us now via Zoom. It's good to have you on the program, Mr. Rafsanjani.
Yeah. Thank you very much, and good morning, Nigerians.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, we're discussing President Tinubu's 2-year anniversary in office. I would like to know, what is your assessment of his leadership so far? Are Nigerians satisfied? Are you satisfied as a Nigerian with the reforms, the policies that he has put in place? What is your first reaction to this?
Yeah, well, it is true that the government had continued to make efforts to ensure that there are certain reforms that will address the socio-economic and political crises that we have in the country. And it is true that Nigeria needs some form of reforms in order to make progress. However, there are certain reforms that I believe that if government had actually consulted Nigerians and maybe perhaps, think twice, maybe perhaps some of the measures taken should have a kind of human pace and should also be addressed, in a manner that will not have these negative, effects that some Nigerians are facing, especially the economic policy reforms. We all know that Nigeria is losing a lot, as a result of poor taxation and mismanagement of tax collected in Nigeria. So for the regime to come up with the reforms, in terms of tax, I think it's commendable. It is important that we make sure that we harmonize our taxes. A lot of people who are supposed to pay tax to the nation, they are not paying. And this is not going to yield any development. So for the government to come up with the reforms in that regard, I think, we should definitely commend the effort of government. Again, there are certain, measures taken in terms of the pure subsidy removal. First and foremost, we also strongly believe that something needed to be done. But the challenge is not really about the subsidy, it is about the corruption in subsidy. So if government had listened to Nigerians and have listened to what we have been advocating, government will have ensured that it blocks leakages, and it also ensure that the subsidy that is supposed to go to the actual Nigerians who are in their need of it are not completely removed, because there's nowhere in the world where subsidy is actually completely abandoned. If you look at the United States, you look at Arabian countries where you have this oil, you have UK, you have Russia, everywhere there's a form of subsidy or the other that the citizens benefit from their country. So it cannot be possible that in Nigeria you will remove everything, overnight. I think that has not really been very positive development, especially when the saving that has been promised to Nigerians would be, put into financing social sector. Until today, there's no any verifiable data evidence by the government to show that the saving from the subsidy had actually been judiciously being utilized. The governors have collected this money, or rather government, say that it has been giving this money to the governors. But the truth is that Nigerians have not seen any difference from what the state governors are doing with this huge money that is supposed to ameliorate the sufferings of Nigerians. So right. I think that policy is not really a good policy, because it has actually caused a lot of hardship to many Nigerians, especially those vulnerable groups.
Okay, Mr. Rafsanjani, this is the second year anniversary, going into the third year. Now, what are those key areas you will want government to focus on in the third year, especially talking about the people feeling the impact of the policies? What are those specific things you will expect government to put in place?
I think if the Tinubu administration will, take measures to block leakages, to ensure that corruption is severely dealt with, and people who are engaging in, corruption to undermine the economy in this country have been shown lesson, I think it will go a long way, because corruption appears to be the backdrop of our lack of economy development in this country. If you look at the large amount of money that goes out of this country, Nigeria is leading in Africa with the illicit financial outflow. The money laundering that is going on in this country, it can only be blocked. It will help to make sure that all the financing for social sector would have been achieved. But as long as leakages in the country and waste and duplication of resources continue to happen, it will be extremely difficult, no matter how good intention the president has. If it is not blocked, it will be difficult for Nigerians to appreciate and also get out of the quagmire of poverty that we find ourselves. Number three, I think it is important that government do encourage the state to come up with the blueprint of industrialization. But actually, no state in Nigeria now is focusing on actually, coming up with industrial plan that will, enable the people at the state to get meaningful employment. We are only spending on some frivolous and funny projects that are meant to siphon public taxpayers' money, not really necessarily to address the challenges that we face. If the society, if the country is not healthy, there's no way you can have productivity. And if there's no productivity, there's no way you can have the needed revenue to be able to finance development that you want to do. So you will be subjected to continuing to domestically and internationally borrow. And when you borrow this money, there's no any measurement to see how those borrowings are affecting positively the life of Nigerians. So I think it's important that
you can just finish that thought, but we're running out of time.
Okay, it is important that government, whatever policies are coming up with, they are policies that are meant to positively, develop the socio-economic, and more importantly, it is important that the government continue to make effort to ensure that they secure and save the country and Nigerians. Because if there's no peace and security in the country, investors will not be able to come. It is very important that we also ensure that there's a judicial reforms in this country. President Ahmed Bola Tinubu must ensure that there's a judicial reforms in this country, as well as general administrative justice system. Because if there's no justice in this country, if people cannot feel safe to make sure that they go to police station or they got any security, output to get justice, then there will be a problem. And even the investors, if they know that the administrative justice system is not be fair, they will not
We've
come.
totally run out of time. We must say thank you so much to you for your thoughts with us on the program. And also Femi Akonde, thank you so much. I wanted to ask you, because there are talks about there is no cabal running, for the very first time, there is no cabal running the villa at the moment. It is President Tinubu in charge of things. I would have loved you to speak more on that, but unfortunately we've run out of time. But we must say thank you so much for your time with us on the program, gentlemen. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right, that's our package from you here in Abuja. It's now over to our Lagos studio, where Veronica and the rest of the crew are standing by to continue with the rest of the show.
All right, thank you to Jesu and Eshamomo for that interview.